Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today, whether it's evening, afternoon, morning. I know we're all over the world, but we really appreciate your attendance today. And this is our first fusion webinar where we've got members of the Early Childhood SIG present and also members of the ECIS Admission SIG. So thank you very much for joining us. Our current overarching theme for our early childhood special interest group is creating cultures to thrive together. And when we were unpacking that, we started to realise how essential admissions procedures are in creating cultures where children can thrive and where schools and teachers can thrive, and how essential that is for building a cohesive and successful community. So I'm really delighted to welcome Judith Wides here today. She has 30 plus years of experience in supporting schools and families and children in just this area. She is currently the Director of Counselling and Family Support at the National Child Research Centre Preschool in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to hand you straight over to Judith because she is our expert this evening, and I'm really looking forward to learning from her wisdom. Thank you very much, Judith.
Yes, hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. It's very exciting to see that people are all over the world, and I love that we're coming together as a large community to talk about these issues. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm assuming that Abby gave me permission for that. And let's see. Whoops. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Uh-oh, something has happened.
Not yet, Judith.
Not yet? Okay, let me go back. Let's see. All right, let's try again. Can you see it now?
Nope, not yet.
Uh-oh. Oh my goodness. Okay. How about now?
It says that, yeah, there it is.
Oh, good. All right, great.
You want to on presentation modes just so that you've got the whole.
If it's okay with you, I'm going to keep it like this so I don't lose track of my tabs. I find that sometimes my computer plays tricks on me. Can everyone see it well enough as it is?
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Okay. So, hello, everybody. The title of my presentation, as you can see, is Are You Ready to Play? Navigating Admissions in an Inclusive Early Years Program. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my school. It is the National Child Research Center Preschool in Washington, D.C. We were founded in 1928, and that is our current building, which was purchased in the 20s and has been expanded and updated and made accessible, but it started out as a big old house. We were created very intently to serve children with special educational needs in an inclusion setting. And we were the first inclusion model preschool in the United States. Back in the 20s, there wasn't a lot of this going on in the US, and a bunch of like-minded, mostly women, got together to create a new model of early childhood education. At the core of our work is a very strong emphasis on relationship, attachment, and learning as a group through having very good social communication skills. We always say that when we do a good job of teaching our children to learn to attune and respond and respect, that we are starting their journey towards being a good student, but also to the first stages of citizenship building. So let me tell you a little bit about the children who thrive at NCRC. We serve children between the ages of 2 and 5 who are really primed for a play-based program. We have children in our program who have a range of personalities and presentations, but the most foundational piece is that they need to be interested in the people around them. They need to be interested in playing. They need to be interested in their peers and their teachers and interested in building relationships. We do serve children on the autism spectrum, and I would say that we do a pretty decent job with children who are what we over here on this side of the pond would call mild to moderate needs children on the spectrum. So we currently have 175 children in our program, and we actively recruit children with mild to moderate special developmental needs. Currently, 20% of our children are receiving specialized supports. They come to us, some of them already identified as having support needs, and sometimes they come to us and during the admissions process, we discover that they would really benefit from some additional support and some classroom adaptations. We are very fortunate in that we have a whole team of people that work in collaboration with our teachers to support all the children, but specifically the children and the parents of the children who benefit from additional supports, adaptations, etc. Our team, it's me, an occupational therapist, a speech and language pathologist, and our director of diversity, equity, and community. So here is a sample. As I said, about 20% of our kids benefit from additional supports. And this is a sample of, we don't have kids like this every year, but this is a sample of kids who generally do well with us. So we have children applying to our program with global developmental needs. They may have been premature, there may be a brain injury, there may be a genetic condition. And as you go down the list here, you can see the range of children that we have served successfully in the past and currently. The way that children the way that their parents find out about our program is often through pediatricians, other educators. A child may apply to another school and that school may say to them, we're not really exactly the right school, but maybe you should look at NCRC. And we have having been around for nearly 100 years, we have a very strong reputation in the broader community for doing a good job creating an inclusion opportunity for young kids who may have a little bit of a challenge in one direction or another. So I'm going to show you one of the videos that we have on our website. So inclusion is a big word that means a lot of things in a lot of different communities around the world. This is, I think, an interesting video to view because this is sort of the ideal. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we work towards this ideal. It's always a little embarrassing to see yourself in video. I am at the end, but I really wanted to show this video as a way to give you a sense of what we strive for.
So at NCRC, some of our students apply with families already understanding that their child has extra support needs. So we start that relationship right away with finding out all of the different needs their children have so we can carry over supports and strategies to the classroom.
It wasn't just the classrooms, but they had these other specialist rooms where they would do the focused support that some kids may benefit from, other kids may not see the same urgent need for.
One of the things I really love about NCRC is the inclusion model that we have here.
Empathy is a big word that every school throws around, but to really learn empathy means you need to spend time with people who are so much different than you and who have different needs than you, and that you learn how to not just accommodate, but to advocate for, to champion. And that's what the kids who graduate NCRC leave with.
The empathy that the kids at NCRC develop. It's so unique. You know, they really look out for each other. They understand each other. They understand that some kids might need some additional things to keep them going throughout the day. They sort of recognize each other, and they know that they're all sort of very different but the same.
I couldn't think more highly of a school than NCRC. They're very intentional about their approach and the way they do things, through the focus on the kids, but also, you know, understanding that every child learns in a very unique way.
The child's experience in the classroom is not just about the child, it's also about the classroom. It's also about whether the teachers the child's working with are aware of what motivates one child being different than what motivates another.
When parents are looking for the right preschool for their children, if they're typically developing, this is a wonderful place to be because they're going to get a lot of diversity exposure, whether it's neurodiversity or other forms of diversity. Our children that have mild to moderate support needs can really thrive here with the right foundational skills and be able to blossom and be ready for their next school experience as well.
It is really important for kids to see each other just as human beings. Let's start there. Like, these are my friends. I may have a friend who doesn't speak. I may have a friend who uses a wheelchair, but these are my friends. And when children grow up together in this way, they become inclusive by nature. So, as you can see, we have this very rosy ideal about the community that we create. And a big part of the reason that it is successful is that we have to have buy-in from the parent community. We have to have parents who want their children there, whether to be exposed to all kinds of diversity. We have to have parents who have typically developing children, but who understand the value in being in a setting where there are children who have different pathways for development. If we didn't cultivate that in our parent community, this would not work. And that is an essential piece. That's a big part of the work that I do, is all of the parent education around issues like, how do you have a play date with a child who uses a communication device? How do you have a play date with a child who uses a wheelchair, etc.? So, but going back to, you know, we have this rosy ideal, and then how do we find these children? How do we find children who will thrive at NCRC? As I said, we are play-based, and we've held dear to that for nearly 100 years. So we need to find children who will flourish in a play-based program. When families apply to NCRC, the first thing that they do after they fill out their application is we ask them to make videos of their children. We ask them to send us 2 to 3 videos that shows the child playing and interacting with siblings, a family member, even the family dog. We see a lot of cute dogs in those admissions videos. And that is a beginning way that we get to know the child initially through those videos. Then if the child is already at a different school, or maybe in a daycare center, or attends a regular play group, we have those adults fill out a basic questionnaire about the child and the child's development. Then we invite all the children who apply to come on campus for a play session. And those play sessions are facilitated by faculty and the child development team. Every child comes with one parent or caregiver. We group them into small groups of maybe 4 or 5 children in a classroom. We do this usually on the weekends, so there aren't other kids in the building. And we spend a lot of our weekends in the fall doing these kinds of play sessions. And then if we are meeting a child, we see them on video, they come and they have a play session, and we still have questions about whether we can serve them or not, we may also make a home visit and or go observe them at their current school or daycare center. And that's actually one of the things that I enjoy most in my position, is I get to do a lot of home visits as part of the admissions process. And I think we see a lot when we can see a child in their natural environment. Okay, let's, when we meet students, What are we looking for in terms of foundational skills? It doesn't matter if the child can speak yet or not, but we're looking for communication and communicative intent. We're looking for, if you look at the bottom of this pyramid here, this pyramid is part of something called the social thinking curriculum, which was developed by speech therapist Michelle Garcia Winner. And we love this pyramid, and we share this with families to let them know what we're looking for when we meet their children. So the foundational blocks on the bottom: joint attention, joint intention, imitation, attachment and emotional engagement, individual self-regulation. These are all the things that we have foremost in our mind when we're looking at the videos of the children and when we meet the children in the play sessions. We don't care if they know their colors. We don't care if they, know letters of the alphabet. We don't care if they can categorize, animals that are mammals versus animals that are, blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't care about any of that stuff. What we're looking for is these foundational pieces, because we know that in a play-based environment, in a play-based learning setting, you need to have these skills in order to thrive. So I think I'm just checking the time. I think we will pause and pop into our Zoom rooms for discussion and then come back, and then I'll share some more information. So I guess, Lindsay, depending on how many people we have on the call, Lindsay and Abby will put you into discussion groups. And what I'd like you to think about when you meet your colleagues in those discussion groups is, how do you find your students? Is your admissions process working in terms of identifying the kids who are a good fit for your school? And what do you do when you find a child who's not a good fit for your school? And how do you evaluate sort of right fit within the broader context of your programming, and thinking about, okay, we may take this child in for early years, but do we imagine this child progressing all the way through our program? So I'm going to come back to the Zoom room there and rely on Lindsay and Abby to set us up with the Zoom chat rooms.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. I know that the best part of these gatherings is having the opportunity to speak with your colleagues. I would love to hear from some of the groups, if somebody could share out from maybe 2 or 3 of the groups what you talked about and what was interesting about what your colleagues had to say. That would be super meaningful for me if people could share. So if somebody is happy to come on the screen, that would be great.
I don't mind sharing.
Great.
I'll get it done with. I had a lovely group. Thank you, ladies. I'm an early years coordinator, and the 2 ladies I was with are both in admissions. So it was really nice to have both perspectives. And it wasn't a ton of time, but we got to briefly discuss about how the admissions process looks whenever students are coming in at the age of 4 and they don't have any sort of diagnoses before, any sort of behavior, no school report to go off of. They're a blank slate, basically, and what kind of processes could potentially be put into place to make sure it's the right fit for a child like that. And that was basically our discussion.
Great, great. And I hope that, the information that I've already shared and the information that I will share will be helpful to you. And of course, at the end, I will have my contact info up on the screen. And I love chatting with colleagues all over the world. So all of you should feel comfortable reaching out if you want more details about the forms we use and the rating scales that we use and all of that to support our admissions process. How about somebody else from a different group?
How about pitch in? Should I pitch in? We had a very small group. It was just Sue and I. There were just 2 of us, and I was just saying it depends so much on your school, doesn't it? So at the moment I'm based in England in the Wellington College, which is 160 years old. So it's got a tried and tested admissions process. I don't know, about 15 students for every place. They come at 13, but they started recruiting at 11. compared to our school in Pune, which is only 6 months old, and we are what we would call a recruiting school. So basically, we need students. We really need them. But making sure we're the right place for those students, rather than it just being commercial, obviously, you know. And I think with younger children, it's interesting because if children are very super nurtured at home, for instance, and they're carried in and they're 4 years old, and then they struggle to kind of share and to play, you kind of know they're going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas we've got a lot of South Korean families. Hyundai have just moved into the city, we're in India, and lots of 9 and 10-year-olds who have absolutely no English. And because we're a very small staff at the moment, we need to make sure that we can support them.
Yes.
Rather than them coming in and not being able to access the curriculum, but we don't want to turn them away. You know, it's I think it just really depends on the school you're in and how old your school is in terms of the process.
Yeah, and it's always very tricky, and I think we have to be flexible and we have to adapt, right? I mean, think about what we all had to do during the pandemic. And actually, we started having families submit these videos during the pandemic, but we've held on to it because it's so useful to us, so useful. Great. Well, thank you, Fiona. Thank you very much. And how about from one more group?
I don't mind contributing. So I'm in the UK, very dull and dreary UK today. And I was just chatting to a couple of other ladies. And one of the things we really talked about was the home visits. It's not something that we do a lot in the UK, but actually the importance, I think, of that, particularly around, you know, we were saying about a child is, you know, they feel safe in the home environment. So that first kind of meeting, if you like, or introduction to the setting should almost be at home where they feel safe and secure. And then that kind of transition into the school where, you know, they then start to meet new faces and new environments. And also, you know, that whole kind of staggered approach to when the child starts. So it's something that in the UK, our approach is different everywhere you go. And it isn't something that is done sort of standard across early years settings or schools. So it's something definitely to think about. You know, and I love the video idea. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Definitely taking that one away from today.
Yeah, it is super useful, Claire. Thank you. And I should have said this in the beginning. So we are an independent school, like all of you who are at international schools. So we have a lot of freedom to create procedures that really work for us, right? If you are, you know, the process for a state school is very, very different. But we are fortunate in that we can tailor our procedures to meet our needs. Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing. I just want you to know I'm not really looking at the chat because for my learning style, I can't look at the chat and talk to people at the same time. But what I am going to do now, as long as screen sharing continues to work, I am actually going to share a video with you. That was a video that was submitted by a family. And I will be curious for you to look at this video and see what you think. This little person that you're going to see is about 16, 17 months old. So he is applying this year for our 2-year-old program for next year. Okay, so let me go to the video and pray to the video gods that this works. And I would just like everybody to pay attention to what you're seeing in this play interaction in this very busy household. And can people see my screen? Just somebody say yes, so I know for sure that it's still working.
Yes, but we still see the questions.
You still see the questions. Okay. All right. All right. Let me make sure. Okay, here we go. Can you see the video now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, here we go.
That way, like, if you, let's say you were supposed to science, but it's a half day, you don't miss science, you just have it skip the next day. Go pee, Teddy, go pee.
This is curving. Not done. This is curving to your shoe.
Charlie, is he riding on the train?
Okay.
Is this our train conductor? Where does he go? Right there? Where does he want to ride? That's perfect. Perfect. Oh, he fell off. You want to put it back on? You want to put it back on? Here, wherever. Nice job. Yay!
Okay, so let me go back to this screen now. Can everybody see my presentation again?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I wanted to share this video because for those of you who are early years people, I know you are looking carefully at what you are seeing between these this little boy and his dad. So this is a perfect example of why context is incredibly important when we are collecting information about young children. We initially saw this video and we thought, wow, this little guy never makes eye contact with his dad. And for those of us in early years and teaming with admissions, that is worrisome. So we had concerns about this little boy. And this is why seeing children in multiple ways and having multiple data points about a young child is really helpful and really important, because when we met this child in person, thankfully, he looked really different. In the home environment, he's the youngest of three, very chaotic. You can see there were a lot of extra people around that day. You can tell by the voices that you heard, etc. We really had some red flags about, wow, this kid is not making eye contact with his dad. There was some, shared theme there in the play, but what we saw was, as the youngest child in this family, on a day when there were lots of family members over, this kid made a decision. I'm just going to shut everybody else out. And my strategy as the third child in the family, I'm just going to stay focused. I'm not even really going to pay that much attention to my dad. So I wanted to show that video to you because those are the kinds of videos that we're looking at and the information we're gathering. And if we only had the videos, I think we would have been very, very worried. But since we had the videos and then the in-person experience, we were very relieved. Now, of course, I could have shown you some videos of some kids who, as it turned out, really had some struggles. But this family gave me permission, so I wanted to share this with you because it's a good reminder that we have to do our due diligence. So, child observation, as I said, when we're looking at the videos, when we are seeing the children in their play visits, we are looking at those bottom of the pyramid skills, right? I brought this slide back up here as a reminder of the foundational pieces that we need to see in order to know that the child will thrive in our setting. So social connection is key. And we are always looking for joint attention, joint intention, and shared enjoyment. Those are probably the most foundational pieces of what we're looking for as we are looking at children. Again, imitation. What do we know about imitation? When we see young children imitating, whether it's through song or finger play or in actual play, that bodes really well for language development. If we don't see children imitating, that is a big red flag for us. Because if you can't imitate, it's really hard to enter into play with a peer. It's really hard to enter into play and sustain play if you can't have a shared play plan with a peer. And imitation is such a foundational piece of that. So here are some questions that I pulled off of some of the forms that we use when we're looking at children in these videos and then in their live play sessions, and then also if we were to make a home visit or a school observation. We always try to come up with 3 words to describe the child, and we will have multiple people do that as a way of getting some maybe inter-rater reliability. But of course, it's very subjective, but we find it to be very helpful. We're looking at the parent-child interaction. That is really, really useful because the way that children interact with their parents tells us a lot about their attachment relationships and their attachment security. And that's important for us to know because part of the work that we are doing is helping children to build upon that secure attachment, to broaden their attachment to their teachers and to build relationships with their peers. Again, looking for social referencing, the imitation piece. And then we're also looking at highly rigid or repetitive play activities, such as lining up cars, stacking blocks. This is anecdotal. There's no research behind this, but I can tell you, if you're meeting, young children for the first time, and a child spends the majority of their time on the floor watching car wheels go back and forth or train wheels go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and can't be invited into play, isn't flexible to shift their attention. Again, this is anecdotal, but for us, that is often like the first sign that, okay, we need to take a deeper dive here. The final point on this slide, did the child recognize that there was a group plan beyond his or her own plan? The term group plan comes from the social thinking curriculum, as I mentioned earlier, developed by Michelle Garcia Winner. And it is the framework that we use when we are looking at children during these admissions play sessions, even if a child is super shy.
Oh, excuse me, everyone. I think we might have lost Judith.
Stay on their mommy's lap. We are okay.
Judith, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Did you lose me?
For a moment then.
Okay.
We lost you for a moment.
Okay, but I'm back now. Yes?
We're back. Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, some children are highly independent in their play. However, we need to see that they still recognize that they are part of a social milieu, because without that understanding, it is very difficult for us to find a way in and build relationship with children and help them in building their peer relationships. So for example, there was a little girl that we met this year we saw her videos, we saw her in a play session with her mom, and this child not only wasn't making eye contact, there wasn't shared appreciation and enthusiasm for play and enjoyment, but in addition to that, during the play sessions, this child didn't acknowledge that everybody was moving from having a little shared snack to then going over to the story area. This child didn't acknowledge, she also didn't respond to her name, that's also a big red flag. But this idea of a group plan, of a human being recognizing that they are part of a group, that there is this group experience going on, is the way that we look at those foundational building blocks from the bottom of that pyramid that I shared. Because without having a basic understanding that there is a group experience going on, it is very hard to get kids to the top of the pyramid, which is learning how to learn in a group, which is what children need to learn in order to be successful as students. Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. We're running short on time here. I think, let's see. I think we are going to skip this share in the Zoom and just finish the slides and then open it up for general questions.
Just to let you know that the slides aren't showing at the moment, Judith.
They're not?
No, so I think you have to reshare because we lost you and then you came back in again, and so probably you need to reshare.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Okay, are you seeing it now?
Not yet.
Okay, let's see why I'm having a problem with that. How about now?
Yes, super.
Yes. Okay, so what have we learned after nearly 100 years? And some of you, especially in the UK, are part of schools that are much older. What we've learned is that an inclusive play-based environment supports students in becoming good human beings, good social thinkers, and ultimately good students and good citizens. But that it takes a lot of work to create a diverse community that will support the needs of such a range of children. You know, we always like to say that we're still learning how to do inclusion well. And if we don't do a good job with admissions, then we are failing all of our students, because our neurotypical students benefit tremendously from being with neurodiverse students, and our neurodiverse students benefit tremendously from being with the neurotypical students. And if we in our admissions work don't do a good job, then we are not building that community that we aspire to. So, okay, I am going to come back to the Zoom without sharing my screen and just open it up. We have about 12 minutes for questions, comments, reflections, etc.
Hi, I'll be brave in the start.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, we're in the Netherlands. Couldn't agree more with everything that you've said, particularly about building the community. That really resonates with us. We take students who just turn 4, anytime 4th birthday, and they come from a really wide range of experiences. Many haven't been to preschool before. Some of them have in this country. We're in the Netherlands. Some of them have been to preschool in different countries where there's different expectations. And it's really hard, especially when you're crossing through language, different linguistic profiles, to find a commonality. But the commonality that we would like to offer is to build a community. I think that when you have got the admissions process right, you really can do that. And we're struggling enormously with how to find the time to do the intakes properly. We have a constant stream of children throughout the year, and we know that it could be better if we had more time to meet with the families. I love what you're saying about the home videos. You know, it's got us thinking about having home videos sent by the families that we can show the other children before that child arrives, so that they can visualize that child, so that they can welcome that person in, seeing them in a more comfortable setting. And then again, when that child arrives, showing that video to welcome them into the community. So that was a really interesting one. But we know for us, it just needs more time to do it properly, and to make that connection with the parents. But yeah, really, really interesting. And we love the language of the imitation. We struggle a lot with children coming in who are not able to imitate the behaviours of others, and therefore they get stuck going round and round. And we have lots of students who don't respond to their name. We wondered also what your thoughts are on the effects of Corona in the interactions that children have with their family, and how that then comes into the classroom. If you have a very quick thoughts.
Yeah, those are great questions, and thank you for that thoughtfulness. We definitely see a difference in the children who were born and had their first couple of years during the pandemic, I think in terms of global development, we are seeing some really interesting delays. I think the biggest thing that we are seeing is children who have not been around other children, and they have a lot of challenges with being flexible because they've just been with their adult caregivers who we all know adults are much more predictable and much more accommodating. So there's a lot of building up of flexibility that we have to work on. The other thing that we are seeing is that sadly, children will show up, and we, for those of you who work with young children, if you've been doing this work for a long time, when you meet a child in person, even taking into consideration the context, right? That it's a new environment, that it may be feeling overwhelming, all of those things. But if the child doesn't respond to their name, if the child doesn't make eye contact, even with their beloved caregiver who brings them, then having those conversations with those parents and talking about how the foundational pieces are not there yet, that the child is not yet ready for a play-based program. If they have too much, we do a lot of work with young children, but there are some children where it's very clear they're not yet ready to be in a group learning environment. And for those parents who say, oh, it's because they're COVID babies. And we know that it's not just because they're COVID babies. We know that, as an experienced clinician and educator, I've met lots of COVID babies during this time who, yes, maybe they needed work on their reflexes and, they had too much screen time and maybe they're not flexible socially, but they are interested in other people. And having those hard conversations with parents about there's something more here than this is that your kid just was socially isolated. Because I always like to use this example. It's a very American example. But when we think about during the period of westward expansion in the United States, when people were moving from the East Coast of the United States out to the plains, right, and slaughtering lots of Native Americans, but that's a whole other conversation. There were families that were very isolated, and kids didn't have other people to play with, but they were still playing, right? They were still playing. It may have just been the mom, the dad, and the dog and the kid, but those kids were still playing. So the social isolation piece is not enough to create the kind of presentation that we are sometimes seeing where the children really lack those foundational skills. I hope that helped to address the thoughts there.
Yeah, I think we're just nodding our heads vigorously with everything you've said. And I think it's what do you do next? Every school has a different context, and we know we need to have the difficult conversations, and you can see the hope on people's faces, and they say, oh, COVID baby, or we lived in social isolation, or we were in a period of a hard lockdown, but your gut feeling tells you that time isn't going to change this one. And we have a 6-week settling in period, but in that time, sometimes we haven't been able to manage the students' needs. And within the community that you've created, you've undone an awful lot of work. But you want to remain optimistic, but it's finding that balance of giving everyone a chance, but knowing that your gut says no.
Yes. And it's so tricky. It's so tricky because you're dealing with the hopes and dreams of parents bringing you their most beloved precious gems, right? And listen, if we had the space on our campus, we could create like an intensive early intervention program with these kids that we see that they're not quite ready for us. And we refer them to other programs in the community, but I know we could fill that program in 30 seconds. If we had this, we're bursting at the seams. We don't have the space to do this, but we all wish that we could, because we know we get it and we know where we would want these children to land. And they have such foundational skill building needs that need to be addressed first. We wish we could do that, but we cannot. So, yeah. Anybody else have questions, thoughts, reflections for the group?
I have one that might build on what Jessica is mentioning about time, but also with the who. Could you walk us through a little bit what yours actually looks like? You said you have a good amount of facilities and resources, but could you actually kind of give us a peek at what that really looks like in the nitty-gritty in a way? Like who is watching these videos, who's watching them when they're in the class, the admissions, the inclusion, the teachers, these sort of things.
Right. So the child development team, which is myself, the occupational therapist, the speech and language pathologist, and our director of diversity, equity, and community, we look at all the videos that are submitted. So it's a lot of work. But we look, and there are some children, we can look at the videos, particularly if they are the younger children of children who are already at the school, and we may have seen them at drop off or pick up, you know, in a stroller or something. And we can look quickly and we can say, okay, we're not worried about this kid, you know, like bring them in for a play session. We're not worried, right? When we then do the play sessions, we will strategically place a member of the child development team in the classroom where the play sessions are happening. The play sessions are staffed by experienced teachers, right? So they are experienced teachers who are in the classrooms with a member of the child development team. And we may have like 5 classrooms with play sessions going on a Saturday morning. And we, the members of the child development team, we will rotate through to make sure we put eyes on all the kids that we were like, ooh, I'm not so sure about that kid's communication, you know. So, and with each step, there is a document that we fill out. So when we're viewing the videos, there's a video form, a child observation form from when we view the videos. And then when we do the play sessions, the teachers in the room as a team afterwards fill out a child observation questionnaire on each of the kids who are in their room. And then the member of the child development team also fills out an additional form, right? Then if we feel we need to make a home visit or go observe a child at school, you know, one member of the child development team will go out and visit the child at their daycare center. And then we also write up our observations. So the documentation piece is really helpful and really important, because when you're dealing with like 200 applications, it's, you have to be able to keep the kids clear, and you have to have the child's picture on every form, because otherwise, you could have, 5 Claras and 6 Sarahs and, 14 Madisons, so yeah. Is that helpful? Does that, Brandy, answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose the one follow-up I have, if people don't mind me asking, is how often you go through this process. Is it something that is, monthly, termly, all at once, rolling over?
Yeah, so we go through this every year. And we start meeting kids on video and in person in November, and then it's generally wrapped up by the first week in March. So that's our annual timeline.
Perfect, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. One more quick question, comment, reflection. We are at 9:58, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Judith, just from your experience, we all want to have, well, I believe that we all want to have all children having access to education, right? And making those decisions about your school not being the best fit for that child is incredibly hard. I don't know what I want to say right now, and I don't think I even have a question, but I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges of the admissions team and the early years people, like how we accept in that moment, because I think we all have this internal hope as well, like they're going to come to us, they're going to have that early years experience, and we're going to make so much progress with this child because we're brilliant teachers that it's all going to be okay.
Those are really
those decisions, I think, is the question I'm asking. Is there a piece with it?
It's always hard. Every year we meet families that we fall in love with, and they may come to us and have no idea what their child's needs are, really. And especially post-pandemic, we're seeing more of this. And then we have to have that hard conversation. I mean, it's heart-wrenching. It is heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, you know, but we feel like if we don't take the step to have the honest conversation and say, your child is not ready yet for our program, we recommend, you know, connecting with the regional early intervention program, which is free, right? So there are free services for speech, OT, ABA, all kinds of supportive services. You know, we also will connect people with therapists in the community that we know specialize in working with kids with XYZ challenge, right? Like for us, we feel an ethical responsibility if we're not going to take the child in, that we set them up on the right path. So a lot of those hard conversations fall to me, and I, as painful as it is sometimes and challenging, if the parents are receptive, then I know that there's potential for partnership in the future, right? That if we say your kid is not ready for our program yet, but if you do X, Y, and Z, which we recognize will be beneficial to their development, then we will be happy to stay in touch with you and see whether it makes sense for your child to join our program. Or if not, we will help you find a program that is a good match for your child's needs. So we give ourselves more work to do every day because we meet these kids, we meet these families, they're wonderful. When we meet families who are not receptive at all, you know, and that happens, right? Where, you know, I've had people say to me, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, okay, you know, then we just say goodbye to them, because some people, as hard as we try to be loving and to be authentic with them and gentle, if we have a sense that they have no idea or they're very resistant, like, we do the best we can and we wish them well, and we cannot help everybody, so we do the best that we can, but we always wish we could do more.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges we have as international schools, right? Sometimes we're in a bubble and we haven't got that other place to advise, and then it makes it even more challenging, you know, for everybody to turn that child away. But I'm guessing what you're saying is part of this inclusion piece is doing the best for that child, and if your setting is not going to meet that child's needs, then you also have to have that in mind.
And of course, and this would be a whole other conversation, but the rules in different countries are very varied. And you know, having spent some time in Greece now and visiting schools in Greece, I learned a lot about the laws there around if you take a child into your program, you know, the idea of counseling that child out, that's incredibly difficult. Even if the school is an independent private international school, there are federal laws, state, you know, national government laws that dictate what you can and cannot do once you take a child into your community. And so I've been trying to support one of the schools in Thessaloniki to help them with their admissions procedures, to try to be able to get a clearer picture of who the child is before they take the child in, so that they don't get into the sticky situation where they have a child with them who really is not appropriate for their setting, and they have to keep the child for 6 years, you know. So anyway, we are out of time here, and I'm on school break, on term break, as you would say in the UK, and I'm rushing off to the dentist this morning. Things that we all do when we have school breaks, right?
Thank you so much, Judith, for sharing all your wisdom and insights with us. And Judith is really happy for people to contact her with other questions or queries, and likewise, reach out to the ECIS Early Childhood SIG. Throw anything that is, unresolved in the chat now, and we'll take it away, we'll mull it over, and we'll try and come back with some more webinars or information or anything that we can help everybody in our lovely community with. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the opportunity. Again, it really fills my heart as a human being and as a professional to connect with colleagues around the world and to know that we're all trying to do the best we can for young children. So thank you, everybody, and have a great week. Take care wherever you are.
Thank you.